All right, everyone. So Canadian snowbirds are selling off their properties in the United States. Airlines are cutting the routes towards the United States, and 900,000 fewer Canadians crossed the border to the United States in March of 2025. All right, so what is actually happening? Are they not happy anymore? Are they just, they cannot just afford those homes in these states? They just want to get back? Because for a long time, historically, Canadians loved traveling to Florida, Arizona, right? Like it was the place to go to. So I will share my screen. Let's look at some data and let's discuss that. If you own a property, if you ever had a property, like please comment below. I'm wondering what is going on. And I would love to know for the people that are in Florida right now, what is happening? How do they feel? Do you guys feel that the prices will collapse and there's a huge increase in inventory? And what is actually happening to our Canadians in Florida? So let's get right into the video. All right, so as mentioned, let's jump right into the first slide here. And City TV News here says more snowbirds selling U.S. homes and the growing tensions in United States. They basically keep growing, right? So if we look down here, one Florida realtor has seen a surge in listings, handling twice her typical workload with more than 30 properties currently on the market. Especially in 2025, a lot of Canadians are selling, and there are many factors that are embellished this decision, said Alexandra DuPont, broker with DuPont International Realty. Right? So even that particular realtor, that is one realtor, but they have seen a significant increase in listing. All right, so this is the busiest it has ever been. I've never had this many listings. Typically on the high season, I would have 10 to 12 clients, which means listings, right? Right now, I'm definitely up to 30 plus, right? So are Canadians fed up? I'm sure they're not fed up with the weather, but what is going on? Like, why this dramatic shift, change, right? So it brings me to another point, right? Do some of these Canadians are pressured with current status in Canada, right? And what I mean by that is like the financial issues, right? Maybe some people have these financial burdens and they don't know how to shake it off, or it might seem impossible, but they do have a property in the United States, in Florida, and they're just trying to cut the fat off. They're just trying to cut wherever they can, bring those funds together, and maybe pay off some debt. And it's happening in Canada as we speak, right? So many cottages up north, right? North of Toronto, and I'm sure it's everywhere across Canada. Their surge of listings just blew up, right? And the prices are not as strong, obviously, as they used to be. You can see the days on the market is much, much longer, right? And even properties that were in high demand, they're not seeing that many walkthroughs, or the activity is very low, which brings me to a point that people are lacking funds, right? So I don't know what is going on with the snowbirds, with the retirees, but what comes to my mind is the shift from a Canadian dollar to the US dollar, because our loonie is hurting a lot, right? So the conversion rate might be much, much, much higher, obviously, and the cost of living, it's through the roof, right? So that could be another factor. So let's get into another slide here. So Canadian Airlines revamp offerings as travelers ditch US vacations, right? So a steep decline in Canadian travel to the US has dealt a blow to the airline that usually cash in on the popular Florida beach vacations and family trips to Disneyland. I don't know if you've ever been to Disneyland, but it's not cheap, guys. Like these vacations, they can obviously come close to $10,000, maybe plus, north of $10,000, right? So it's like it's obviously a dream come true even for the adults. For the kids is obviously stunning, right? But the cost, like we're talking now that people are like shrinking in their spending, and everything is shrinking, the economies are shrinking, and the airlines are trying to adjust, right? So everybody is slowly feeling that recession breathing down their necks. That's exactly what is coming. And that's one of the indicators that, like obviously the tensions now between the United States and Canada, on the political grounds and all of that, add fuel to the fire. But, for an average Joe, they don't really care. If they got the money, if they have a setup, if they're comfortable, all they want to do is sit by the beach, drink a pina colada or a beer, cerveza, whatever, and enjoy their life. Who cares, right? They can handle that political shake. But if they don't have money, that becomes a huge problem, or the affordability gets out of hand. All right, so let's get into something else that I mentioned at the beginning of this video. So nearly 900,000 fewer people went to the US in March as cross-border travel plummets. As you know, right? Traveling, even traveling to Niagara Falls nowadays is a trip, right? It costs money. Like I was actually stunned and I was surprised that even parking lots in Niagara Falls are like, $30 to $50 per day. I'm like, oh my gosh, right? You park your car, you buy ice cream, you travel to the destination of Niagara Falls. You might have dinner, so you're out $500, right? Imagine crossing the border. Currency exchange we mentioned, right? Wherever you're traveling, obviously you need gas, you need funds, and everything adds up. So if nearly 1 million people decided not to travel, I'm wondering if it's obviously that financial deficit, right? Because everybody's trying to scramble. Please comment below. I really want to dig a little bit more into this topic. But I value your opinion. I need to know what you guys are thinking. All right, so the number of crossing border travelers going to Canada to the US dropped by nearly 900,000 in March compared to the same month last year, according to the US Customs and Border Protection. The border figures show 4,105,516 travelers crossed in March, and down to from nearly 5 million people that did in 2024. Now, this is interesting, right? Because in 2024, we were still struggling with our problems here in Canada, interest rates and uncertainty and all of that stuff. So now these tariffs might have impacted a lot of things along the way. Of course they did, right? And obviously businesses will be impacted, and it is a chain reaction, right? It is a chain reaction that can impact from the biggest to the smallest guy in the chain, right? So how does the saying go? You're as strong as your weakest link, right? So let's go to the next slide. And this one is very interesting. It says Snowbird sell-off. Canadians are parting ways with U.S. properties, right? So if we start digging into like these are real people. He and his wife sold their winter home in Phoenix. It closed this Friday. Congratulations. We've been tolerating the poor dollar for a few years, hoping that it would get better. But now This political mess with the US and Mr. Trump is very, very, very insulting, said McMullen, who returned to Canada last Sunday. And it looks like these folks are from Alberta, Dale, and Tracy. All right, welcome back to Canada. So he says he'll miss the second home, the wonderful weather, and the American friends. Obviously, like people meet people, and they're good Americans, good people, good neighbors. I love to travel to the United States. Lots to see. You meet a lot of interesting people, and they're good people, right? Like there's a lot of good American people, right? So let's continue. In the face of trade war with the US President Donald Trump and the falling Canadian dollar, snowbirds are increasingly getting rid of their properties, says a realtor, right? So as we're unpacking this, we can see that people are breathing much, much heavier, right? So moving further, Natalie Mancuso, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing this right, who lives just outside Montreal, recently sold her condo in Pompano Beach, north of Fort Lauderdale. We didn't want to keep investing and giving our money to a country that is led by a fool, she told Global News, was insulting Canadians like they're a piece of carpet under their feet. As you can see, people are being insulted, and it makes them actually sell and leave that particular environment. I don't know if this is enough, but I'm sure for a lot of people, right? Like they feel like, oh my gosh, like this is you're poking me in a weird way, and I don't like it. She and her husband vacationed in the Sunshine State for more than a decade, but the appeal has started to fade since Trump returned to the White House. Okay, so we go to the next folks. He says here, we were really disappointed to have to make this decision, but we felt we couldn't betray our souls, said this couple. Katrine Spino, a real estate agent in South Florida, is witnessing what she describes as a major shift as the market becomes more expensive and less predictable for Canadians. There are multiple reasons, she told Global News, but definitely they want to sell and they want to cash out and bring back their money to Canada. Interesting. Arizona Premier Realty Realtor Lorene Levine also seen listings skyrocket or jump, right? My phone's been ringing off the hook. I normally have 2-3 listings at a time around this year, said Levine. Right now she has 16. That's a major, major jump, and it's skyrocketed basically, right? So Canadians top of the list for foreign buyers in the United States, making up 13% of home purchases, most in Florida and Arizona. Last year, according to a report from the US Organization of Realtors, but escaping the cold appears less attractive when the relationship between the US and Canada it's also frigid, right? So I guess people living there, I have not lived there for a long period of time, so it's hard for me to judge, but some of these folks maybe could be the off people. But I mean, these realtors are claiming that the like overall listing skyrocketed, right? So it is a big concern, right? Because what happens every time you have a listing surge, the demand weakens because there's more choice, and people start to look, they want to get a deal and all of that stuff. Same thing is actually happening with us. But so financial and political pressures, right? Like soaring insurance costs for a weak Canadian dollar makes US ownership less sustainable, right? We talked about that. That could be also another reason, right? Because if you have to top every time, it becomes like crazy, right? So political tensions, many people have mentioned that. including trade tariffs and stricter border regulations under the Trump administration, have made Canadians feel unwelcome. All right, so some might feel unwelcome, some might feel it's too much because they're not used to that particular treatment, right? So they might say, "Hey, look, like I'm out. Everybody wants out, right?" And it's clear, right? So, airlines adjust course. We have talked about that. Air Canada has cut its 2025 profit forecast due to a significant drop in U.S. bound bookings. So that is actually interesting, right? That the Air Canada is, well, obviously they dig through data, they know what's going on, and they have to make these predictions, right? So Canadian Airlines are revamping offerings, reducing U.S. flights, and focusing more on domestic and European routes, right? So things are obviously changing the landscape, how maybe we will travel in the future, maybe our destinations will shift towards somewhere else, like I don't know. Decline in crossing border. We already mentioned that in March of 2025, 900,000 less Canadians crossed, right? So factors obviously include political tensions, economical uncertainty, and a strong US dollars making travel more expensive. So I hope you got some value out of this. This was something interesting. It was something different for me. I've never done Florida and Arizona versus Canada, but please comment. I need to know what you're thinking. Like, get involved. Let's try figuring this out. Until then, stay safe, be well, be strong, and I'll see you in the next one.